Facebook today unleashed a massive strike against Australia, one that was meant to frighten us, and I think it should actually teach us a huge lesson. Facebook is fighting moves by the Morrison government to make these social media giants pay for the news that they take or steal, whatever the word is, from Australian news organisations. So it overnight stripped Australian news sites on Facebook of all news. The more than 10 million Australians who use Facebook were also stopped from sharing news items. And Facebook didn't stop there. It also stripped content from Facebook sites of politicians, of hospitals even, of charities, the ACTU and even the Weather Bureau. And it did all this overnight, without warning, as a naked show of its power. Well, the government was livid.
We are profoundly shocked that they would take action that would affect health and appropriately related sites. We understand that ACT Health, Queensland Health, South Australian Health, Dementia Australia sites, the Kids Cancer Project and Bowel Cancer Australia have all been affected.
Facebook was wrong. Facebook's actions were unnecessary. They were heavy-handed and they will damage its reputation here in Australia. Their decision to block Australians' access to government sites, be they about support through the pandemic, mental health, emergency services, the Bureau of Meteorology, were completely unrelated to the Media Code, which is yet to pass through the Senate.
Now, that Media Code, like I said, is an attempt to get Facebook and Google, especially, to pay for the content produced by news organisations in Australia, like my own. Now, Google has agreed to pay up. It's making deals right now. But Facebook says no. It reckons news organisations here should be glad of the clicks it sends them. It said last night Facebook last year generated approximately 5.1 billion free referrals or clicks to Australian publishers that it says were worth $407 million. And what a charitable organisation that Facebook really is, eh? Meanwhile, of course, Facebook and Google, which you didn't mention, grab 81 cents in every single dollar that Australian businesses spend on online ads. What a charity. How noble of Facebook. But whether you think Facebook is ripping off Australian publishers or whether you think, oh, well, the publishers should be grateful, what Facebook did today is really shocking. The sheer arrogance, I mean, the thuggery, the bullying. That's our saying, whoops, sorry, we didn't actually mean to strip the content of the Facebook pages of even hospitals from your Weather Bureau. Sorry about that. We're just confused by this complicated code of the government's. And yes, it did eventually put most of that content back, but not of the publishers, of course. But I reckon that excuse, Facebook, that, it's just an accident, is complete bull. I mean, to me, that mistake looks very, very deliberate. A warning. Mess with Facebook, watch out. This is just the taste of what we can do to your little country. Chinese-style diplomacy. See our power and tremble. And boy, did the Treasurer this morning see that power. There he was about to play some tennis when Facebook sent him running back to his office to find out what the hell had happened and to ring Facebook boss Mark Zuckerberg to try to sort it out. Hasn't worked so far. So yes, Frydenberg sure got the message that he had a massive tiger by the tail.
They're among the most powerful businesses in the world in terms of their reach, but also their balance sheet.
Yes, and Facebook is indeed powerful. More than 10 million users in Australia. 10 million. And Facebook disabled the accounts of just a tiny fraction of them to see how much that hurt. Chaos, blah, blah, complaints. What could it do to us if it got really serious? And that's not all it does to us, of course, to manipulate our politics. We already see it now censoring Conservatives. Just this week, it suspended politician Craig Kelly on completely false claims that he spread misinformation about treatments for coronavirus. But for me, the really frightening thing about Facebook now giving that Kelly treatment to so many other Australians, is that it isn't just a warning of what more Facebook could do. It is a warning of what others could also do to us. It is just the tiniest lesson, example of how vulnerable we are to any attack on our communications. We're also hyper-connected. Well, see what happens, whether it's Facebook or Google or China that disrupts them. China's already responsible for massive cyber attacks in Australia, which seem to be a test of our defences or to steal our secrets. And we have to think individually or as a nation how vulnerable we are at being turned off, almost literally, with the flick of a foreign switch, as Facebook did last night. Well, let us start thinking. I'd begin by thinking at least of getting off Facebook. There are alternative sites now that we've been warned what Facebook can and will do. Look for those alternatives. Make Facebook pay for this bullying. Make this bullying backfire.